Hey guys, Jalen here from TBIIinfinitey, bring you guys another Buddyfight deck profile, and we got another X-Set deck, and we got my Prism Dragons. Prism Dragons are a deck that most people aren't into because they're like, oh, it's a defensive playstyle. Defensive playstyles are boring, and for the most part, you can be right, but one, boring can win, so even if it's boring to you, it's not saying it's fun for the person playing it, but you gotta respect that it's still a deck. It's something you're gonna have to face. Suck it up. People don't like facing... There are probably defensive players that don't like playing aggressive decks. I don't mind facing aggressive decks. I don't really care. I face a deck, I go in facing it. Whether I dislike how the deck is or not is not important. It's how well I play against it. I don't care that if I don't have a certain bias towards the deck or whatever the fuck. It's just... you play against what you gotta play against. Anyway. Enough discretion. Let's get on to the deck. We have our flag, which is Star Dragon World, and our buddy is White Crystal Dragon Riseling, 1/1/3 size 0 with the ability whenever it's called, and I have a size 3 in the center, I get to draw a card. And this is the field, so just simple draw a card. It's bad stats, but just useful for pinging for 1 or killing globes against Thunder Empire, or just rush them on against only assassins or something like that, because they have 1k defense. Then, of course, for the size zeros, we play 4 copies of the Buddy Riseling, so not gonna get into explanations there. Just went over it. And it's my only size 0, aside from like literally the purpose of Galette, which is a size 1, but it's 3/2/1 size 1 with the pay 1 gauge and top deck soul call cost, and it has Soul Guard. It has the ability to reduce its size if you have a monster in your centers by 1, so, well, it reduces its size by 1, sorry, if that sounded confusing the way I just said it. And it basically becomes a 0 if you have a center, and if it gives your center, plus 1,000 power and defense. So, with Crystal Spike, it makes, either of your Atheras, 10k, it makes, Shelter, sorry, into an, 8k. If you play Calvados, that makes him 9k. Just simple math, but I'm just saying, like, it's just pretty alright. It's a decent 0/2 crit. 1 gauge can get a little annoying, but it's pretty good nonetheless. Don't play any other zeros. That's all of them. 8, basically. Don't like Amarone, the red Crystal Dragon that gives a gauge. You can get plenty of gauge in this deck without using that card. And it being limited and how you can use it. Then there's just in general, I just don't find any use for that card or any of the other ones. Remove Soul 1 is alright, but that's mainly against the mirror and like that's it, really. And Zodiac and stuff like that. Anyway, on the size 3s, we have 3 copies of Green Crystal Dragon Shelter. Shelter's 8/25 size 3, 2 gauge, and top deck Soul. It destroys monster on attack if you, on an attack, if you have 7 or more life. If it's destroyed, you gain a life, and it's double attack and Soul Guard, so it's just pretty damn alright for not being an Athera. It's just really good because you can just you can just attack the center while popping sides when you're at high life, and it's kind of easy when this card keeps gaining you life and it's destroyed. Even if you use things like Brush Upper, it will still gain your life, and if you, since you can choose a resolution of effect, you can gain a life first, then get a, well, not really, sorry, but, you can, if you're already at the 6 more life and you cast Brush Upper, then you can get a gauge, and then you'll get a life after with this ability, so, just nice in tandem. Then we have 4 copies of Radiant Crystal Dragon Athera. It's the trial deck size 3 Athera. It's pretty damn good for now. Obviously, if you've been looking at Buddy spoilers, you can see that we're getting other Atheras that are far better than the trial deck one. But regardless, this is what we got so far, and he's pretty alright for what he does. 7/2/7 size 3 with the ability, double attack, Soul Guard, and it cannot be destroyed by effects on your opponent's turn if it's in your center, so your opponent can't, like, you go against Dragon World, they can't Heaven Sunshine or use some kind of destruction like that. Ball Soleil, they would have to do on your turn. Things like that. go against the mirror match, Shelder won't be able to use his attack ability on you. So it's pretty dang alright. But it has its obvious weaknesses, like the fact of counter destruction, like counter call Buki Doji on your turn during an attack, and if you have like no soul, then they just basically kill it, and you get burned 3, and then you don't have an attack phase basically. And then all you can really do is hope you brush upper, and then that still does you 3 damage. And then now they have Buki Doji, so that's just gonna, like, you have to now attack it, and then they'll probably defend it, and then they'll just attack you next turn with it. Anyway. Then we have 4 copies of the obvious Quintessence, Crystal Dragon, Athra. Quintessence, Crystal Dragon, Athra is, the same stats as Trial Deck 727. It's 3 gauge and top deck 2 soul. It has double attack and soul guard, and it cannot be destroyed by effects, and you can't take damage by effects if this card is in your center. So, pretty damn simple ability, but pretty damn strong nonetheless. Just, you can't get burned by effects, so they literally have to get over this wall. They can't destroy by effects, so, and if you have Crystal Spike, they can't nullify, his ability, so no frozen starring your way out of it. So, you really, this is like one of those walls. It's literally a wall. You have to attack it. You have to deal with it through normal means, instead of just using effects to get around big things. So, that's what I really like about it, and it's obviously the best size 3 for the deck. So that's it for the monster lineup. Now we're on to spells. We have 2 copies of Buff Grinder. Buff Grinder is a counter spell that can only be casted if you have a center, a Prism Dragon center. You could add that counter, give all your Prism Dragons for the turn 2,000 power and defense, permanently, or, well, for the turn, sorry. I already said that, sorry, I'm just tired. Then we have the second ability to let you counter destroy a spell, so basically against things like Frozen Stars, Pillars, anything that just like sets a spell that you don't like, you can just choose to do that effect instead. And this is completely free, so it's not really like it's much of a detriment to you. Then we have 3 copies of Starjack Boost. Starjack Boost, you can only cast it if you have 7 or more life. Kind of easy for Prisms, and they like to stay in that 7 or more life range anyway. And it has the ability, and it just gives you a gauge and draw. That's just what it does. Just top deck gauge, draw. You can only cast 1 Starjack Boost per turn. Just pretty damn good card for the deck. I know, weird border, because this is the old border, and now we have the new sparkly Prism Dragon based border. I don't know why they didn't just, I don't know. I mean, I guess that'll be a whole lot of work to have, you know, just intertwining between the borders. Like, oh, if it's a Neo Dragon card or Dragon Arms, then make it the old border, and then if it's Prism Dragon based, then give it the new border, and that would probably be confusing for the R&D, like, whatever, like, manufacturing or whatever. I just think it's a weird change a little bit, not gonna lie. Then we have 3 copies of Prism Amulet. Prism Amulet is a just basic Drago Energy clone. It's 3k counterattack. Choose a Prism in battle and give it 3k counterattack. It's just pretty useful because it's a defense card that doesn't cost you anything, like Radiant Shell or something. So it's just the defense boost while already raising your defenses high is just really useful nonetheless. So it's just pretty damn good. It gets Cloggy at 4, so I just bumped it down to 3. Another card that I felt was Cloggy at 4, but it's working well at 3. It's 3 copies of Mystery Setting. You can cast this card. It goes into a Soul of Prism Dragon, and it has it can't be removed by your opponent's like soul removal effects. And then when the Prism Dragon in your center is well, not in your center, but the one that this is in the soul of is attacked, then you get a gauge. This ability only activates once per turn. The thing about this is it can get a little conflicting because it does take up your counter timing on attack. But if you do want to use things like Prism Amulet, you can use that on a different timing. It doesn't take up your entire counter timing. It can be opened up for things like in battle, like things like Prism Amulet, or on destruction, which is somewhat after battle. I'm pretty sure it's counter timing where you can then use Brush Upper, because similar to things like Dragon Baby Ricky and Soul Guard. Regardless, Mystery Setting is pretty dang good. to not deal with just immediate soul removal of everything. At least that will stay in. Then we have 3 copies of Prism, your counter removal card. Might build this down to 2, maybe later, but I've been liking it at 3. Yes, it's not useful against Thunder Empire, that's what everyone's argument is, but regardless, there's plenty of other decks this is useful against. Anyway, Prism Amulet, you can only cast if you have a center, pay 1 gauge cast cost, and you can destroy a monster based on your defense compared to their power. So what this means is, if they have, let's say you have an Opera with the base 7k defense, you can destroy a monster with 7k power or less. So it's that simple. And if your Opera or whatever's in the center keeps getting its defense raised by Crystal Spikes and Galettes, then higher the threshold for Prism Eye. 4 copies of Enhancement. You get a gauge, and then if you have a size 3 in your center, you get a draw. So basically, this is your, and you can only cast 1 enhancement per turn. Basically, this is Starjack Boost, it's just supposed to be your hand-in-hand thing. You just call 3, it's going to cost you 2 to 3 gauge, and then you're just going to get that gauge back, and while keeping your hand size plentiful, with enhancement and Starjack Boost. I don't really like to focus on things like Visible Light and Crush and Replenish, Fragment Reload, because they've been alright in testing, but I just found more value in just doing things like Enhancement and Starjack Boost, because I don't need to spend a shit ton of gauge, because I can save plenty with just how much you really don't spend all that much gauge on most of your defense cards. Things like Brush Upper does give you the gauge back, Mystery Setting gives you gauge. Like, I don't have a problem with gauge in this deck. I really don't. So, I didn't feel the need for cards that give me so much gauge that I'm not gonna use. Then, we have 4 copies of Brush Upper, which is basically your Dragon Barrier. You can only cast if you have a Prism Dragon in your center. Choose a Prism Dragon on your field. When it would be destroyed, it remains on field. And if you have 6 or more life, after that, then you get a gauge. So, woohoo. It's pretty dang good. Just being the basic Dragon Barrier that gives gauge for a deck like this is just really good nonetheless. Then your basic null for the deck for now is Radiant Shell. Radiant Shell is a spell defense attribute, pay gauge. When your Prism Dragon, you can only cast it when your Prism Dragon in the center is being attacked, so no Shadow Dive, no, if they're attacking the weapon or whatever the fuck, it has to be the Prism Dragon in your center. This item's not in your center, technically, because it's in the center column, but it's not center position. That's for monsters. Sorry, I'm just over explaining this. Sorry. Counter nullify the attack, deal damage to your opponent. Just really great in tandem with Crystal Spike, which I'll be getting into soon. We have 4 copies of Crystal Spike. Crystal Spike is a 0/0 pay 1 gauge equip cost item with the Prism Dragon attribute. It's pretty useful sometimes because you can save it with Brush Upper. And it has the ability that its abilities can't be nullified, and the Prism Dragon in your center abilities can't be nullified. Then it gives 2k to power and defense, and at the end of the battle, if you have a Prism Dragon in your center, after the end of any battle, deal a damage once per turn. It is very imperative that people realize if they attack my right, like Riesling or Galette, if I have a center, you get burned. It's not like, oh, if I attack, it has to be when I attack your center. That's not how it's worded. If I have a center after you did battle with something, you get burned. That's how it works. Anyway, just pretty dang good. People are just gonna probably just always try to destroy this, because it's gonna be the most problematic thing when dealing with Prisms, next to, of course, Athra, but this makes just the Athra much harder to deal with. More power and defense, allowing it to just deal burn while still going for the double attack 2 crit, so it's like, oh, there's 5 damage practically within 2 turns, and that's not even counting if you did Radiant Shell, so then that could be 6 damage, and if they don't get any life, then they're put into range of the next card. I'm going into 3 copies of Cristiano Crystal Shoot. Sorry, oh my god, I have no fingernails. I always freaking clip these. 3 copies of Cristiano Crystal Shoot. I don't like to play 4. I've tested 4. I will always not like it because this is not a deck built around killing them at the end game or whatever. It's all about being defensive and whittling down your opponent's resources. And this is just where I like to take. And this card is just there for when there's a hole in their defense, and then I can break through and just end the game when I'm ready to do so. Anyway, you can only cast this card during your opponent's final phase, and you have to have taken no damage. You have to have a size 3 Prism Dragon in your center, and your opponent has to be at 4 or less life. Pay 2 gauge, just, deal them 4 damage, and they cannot reduce the damage. This card cannot be nullified, and they cannot use their life cannot be changed by effects. I'm pretty sure that's how it's worded. Yeah, it cannot be changed by your opponent's cards. Sorry. So things like dry, style of retaliation, whatever random thing, burn nova, you're not reviving. It's simple. The anime's not exactly gone into this because no one's tried to revive from it, but regardless, you can't revive from it. Anyway, thank you guys for for watching this video. Hope you guys subscribe to TeamBurningInfinitey for more Buddyfight content. We will bring out more X at decks. Thunder Empire's up next. Maybe Dry, then DCE, and maybe even Wild Dragons, if that gets any demand. So anyway, sorry for stuttering and stuff, just dealing with life and crazy stuff I've put myself into. So I'll talk to you guys later. Jalen from TBI and Buddyfight, going out.